Germany entered the Second World War with a deep belief that wars would be won by speed, coordination, and information. Reconnaissance aircraft were meant to be the eyes of the Luftwaffe, mapping enemy positions, tracking fleets, guiding bombers, and reporting battlefield changes in near real time. From fragile pre-war biplanes to pressurized high-altitude aircraft and eventually jet-powered scouts, Germany deployed a surprisingly wide range of reconnaissance platforms across every front of the war. Some were highly effective in the early years, others were improvised solutions to growing Allied pressure, and a few were technological leaps that arrived far too late. Understanding these aircraft explains not just what Germany could see, but what it missed. As you listen, consider this. Which reconnaissance design do you think mattered most to Germany's war effort, and which was the biggest missed opportunity? Pre-war and early Luftwaffe reconnaissance aircraft, 1935–1939. Heinkel He 45, the Heinkel. He 45 was one of the Luftwaffe's earliest reconnaissance aircraft, entering service in the mid-1930s. It was a biplane with an open cockpit, modest speed, and minimal defensive armament. While already obsolete by 1939, it played an important foundational role by training reconnaissance crews and establishing standardized observation and reporting procedures that later aircraft would inherit. Heinkel He 46, the Heinkel. He 46 followed as an incremental improvement, offering better flight stability and a slightly higher payload capacity. It remained vulnerable to modern fighters but provided more reliable aerial photography and radio communication, reflecting Germany's growing emphasis on coordinated ground-air operations. Henschel Hs 126. The Henschel Hs 126 represented a major step forward in German tactical reconnaissance. As a high-wing monoplane, it offered excellent downward visibility, longer endurance, and improved survivability compared to earlier designs. By the start of the war, it was the Luftwaffe's primary battlefield reconnaissance aircraft, and saw extensive use during the invasions of Poland and France. Dornier Do 23. The Dornier Do 23 introduced twin-engine reliability and greater range into early reconnaissance operations. Though not produced in large numbers, it helped transition German thinking away from purely local observation toward deeper operational intelligence. Dornier Do 17 reconnaissance variants. Early reconnaissance versions of the Dornier Do 17 combined higher speed with improved altitude performance. These aircraft hinted at Germany's shift toward faster, harder-to-intercept reconnaissance platforms capable of operating beyond the immediate front lines. Dedicated tactical reconnaissance aircraft, 1939–1942. Fieseler Fi 156, Storch. The Fieseler Fi 156 was one of the most distinctive reconnaissance aircraft of the war. Its extreme short takeoff and landing capability allowed it to operate from roads, fields, and improvised clearings close to the front. While slow and defenseless against fighters, its unmatched low-speed handling made it invaluable for battlefield observation, liaison duties, and rapid intelligence delivery. Henschel Hs 126. Although designed before the war, the Hs 126 remained in frontline service during the early campaigns. Its stable flight characteristics and excellent visibility made it well-suited for artillery spotting and low-altitude reconnaissance, though rising Allied air opposition gradually forced it out of contested airspace. Messerschmitt Bf 108. Taifun, primarily a liaison aircraft, the Bf 108 was frequently used for light reconnaissance and courier missions. Its speed and reliability allowed commanders to move information and personnel quickly between units, especially in regions where radio communication was unreliable or intercepted. Messerschmitt Bf 109 reconnaissance variants, Bf 109ER FR. Reconnaissance variants of the Bf 109 replaced armament with cameras and additional fuel. These aircraft relied on speed rather than defense, performing rapid tactical intelligence missions over enemy territory and often operating alone at high risk. Messerschmitt Bf 110 reconnaissance variants. The twin-engine Bf 110 offered longer range and greater payload than single-engine fighters. In reconnaissance form, it served as a fast tactical scout but suffered increasing losses as Allied fighters improved, revealing the growing vulnerability of multi-role designs. Medium and long-range strategic reconnaissance aircraft, 1940–1943. Junkers Ju-88 reconnaissance variants. The Ju-88D and related reconnaissance versions became the backbone of German long-range aerial intelligence. These aircraft carried multiple camera systems and extended fuel tanks, allowing them to operate over Britain, North Africa, and the Soviet Union. Their versatility made them indispensable, but growing Allied fighter coverage steadily increased losses. Dornier Do 217 reconnaissance variants. The Do 217 offered improved range and payload compared to earlier designs. In reconnaissance roles, it conducted long-distance missions over the Atlantic and Mediterranean, gathering maritime and strategic intelligence. However, its size and limited defensive capabilities made it increasingly vulnerable as Allied air defenses strengthened. Heinkel He 111 reconnaissance variants. Originally a bomber, the He 111 was adapted for reconnaissance by removing bomb loads in favor of cameras and fuel. Its stable flight and long endurance suited it for extended missions, but by the middle of the war, its low speed made it an easy target when operating without fighter escort. Focke-Wulf Fw 200. Condor. The Fw 200 played a crucial role in maritime and Atlantic reconnaissance. It tracked Allied convoys and relayed positions to U-boat forces, significantly influencing early Battle of the Atlantic operations. Structural weaknesses and improved Allied countermeasures eventually limited its effectiveness. High-altitude reconnaissance aircraft, 1941–1944. Junkers Ju-86P and Ju-86R. The Ju-86P and later Ju-86R were among Germany's most ambitious reconnaissance platforms. Modified with diesel engines and pressurized cabins, these aircraft have operated at altitudes exceeding 40,000 feet, making interception extremely difficult in the early years. However, limited production and mechanical complexity prevented them from having a decisive impact. Messerschmitt Bf 109 GR high-altitude variants. High-altitude reconnaissance conversions of the Bf 109 sacrificed weapons for cameras and additional oxygen systems. While capable of reaching impressive heights, their limited range restricted mission duration, reducing their usefulness compared to dedicated platforms. Messerschmitt Bf 110 high-altitude reconnaissance variants. The Bf 110 was also adapted for high-altitude roles, carrying improved camera equipment and modified engines. Despite these changes, its large size and declining performance at extreme altitude made it increasingly vulnerable as Allied fighters improved. Jet and Advanced Reconnaissance Projects, 1944–1945. Arado Ar 234B2. Blitz. The Arado Ar 234 was the world's first operational jet reconnaissance aircraft. In its reconnaissance configuration, it carried advanced camera systems and relied entirely on speed and altitude for protection. Allied fighters were often unable to intercept it, allowing the R-234 to conduct photographic missions over heavily defended targets, including the Normandy beaches and Allied ports. Messerschmitt Me 262A1A U3 reconnaissance variant. Reconnaissance versions of the Me 262 replaced weapons with cameras while retaining the jet's extraordinary speed. These aircraft could penetrate deep into Allied airspace and return with high-quality intelligence. However, fuel shortages, maintenance difficulties, and limited pilot availability restricted their operational use. Blohm Voss BV-150. Originally designed as a high-altitude interceptor, the BV-155 was also considered for reconnaissance duties. Its long wings and altitude potential made it theoretically suitable for strategic intelligence gathering, but the aircraft never progressed beyond prototype stages. Naval and Specialized Maritime Reconnaissance Aircraft, 1939–1945. Blohm Voss BV-138. The BV-138 was a long-range flying boat specifically designed for maritime reconnaissance. Its distinctive twin-boom layout and multiple engines gave it excellent range and loiter time over the Atlantic and Arctic waters. It played a key role in scouting convoys and monitoring Allied naval activity, particularly in northern sea routes. Heinkel He 115. The He 115 was a floatplane used for coastal reconnaissance, mine-laying support, and anti-shipping patrols. While reasonably capable early in the war, its limited speed and defensive armament made it increasingly vulnerable as Allied fighter patrols expanded. Arado Ar 196. Designed as a ship-launched reconnaissance aircraft, the R-196 operated from battleships and cruisers. It provided German surface fleets with vital local intelligence, spotting enemy ships and coordinating naval gunfire. Its effectiveness declined as German capital ships were neutralized or sunk. Dornier Do 24. The Do-24 served primarily in sea rescue and coastal patrol roles, but also contributed valuable reconnaissance data. Its rugged design allowed it to operate in harsh conditions, recovering crews and observing enemy movements in contested waters. Focke-Wulf Fw 200 expanded maritime role. Beyond strategic reconnaissance, the Fw 200 acted as a long-range ocean scout, directing U-boat attacks. Early successes highlighted the power of coordinated air-sea intelligence, though structural issues and Allied countermeasures eventually limited its effectiveness. Germany entered the Second World War with a reconnaissance force that was technically diverse but strategically uneven. Early successes were driven by close coordination with ground forces and a wide mix of tactical observation aircraft, giving the Luftwaffe strong battlefield awareness during the opening campaigns. As the war expanded, Germany attempted to compensate for limited strategic intelligence infrastructure by adapting bombers, fighters, and maritime aircraft into reconnaissance roles. High-altitude platforms and jet aircraft demonstrated remarkable innovation, often pushing aviation technology ahead of its time. However, these advances could not overcome structural weaknesses. Limited production capacity, fuel shortages, fragmented command priorities, and the rapid improvement of Allied air defenses. By the final years of the war, Germany possessed some of the fastest and highest-flying reconnaissance aircraft ever built, yet lacked the ability to deploy them in numbers that mattered. In the end, German reconnaissance tells a clear story. Technological brilliance without sustained strategic advantage cannot win an intelligence war.